This quick video is to talk about how we create our school calendars and specifically how we develop the calendar for the 2022-2023 school year. Building a calendar is an awful lot like building a house. You have to make sure that all the essential components fit together perfectly to make a finished product. We have several considerations that we have to take into account in building a calendar, including the number of days for students and teachers, federal holidays, and block scheduling for our high school students. With block scheduling, we need to be sure that our students have 90 days prior to winter break and prior to the last day of school in order to complete all their coursework. We also need to look at when the Georgia Milestones assessments will be administered, when we'll hold graduation, and also 10 teacher workdays must be included in pre-planning and post-planning. There are 4 steps in our calendar process. First, once we've used all those special considerations to build a calendar, we present several options in an employee and also family survey. We also look for principal feedback. Once we've collected all that data, it goes to our system steering committee who vote on our open house date and also make a formal recommendation of the school calendar to the Board of Education. The last stop in the process is our Board of Education, who choose to either adopt the recommended calendar or send it back for revisions. When you look at the math for our fall semester, you can see that while we start out with 153 days, by the time we take away weekends, federal holidays, and breaks, as well as our student learning days, we only have 2 days of flexibility in the calendar. One of the concerns we often hear is that school should start later in August or September. Due to block scheduling, all of our high school classes need to be completed by winter break. So if we were to push the calendar start date later into August or September, we would have to trim days from either our winter or fall break. We know that we have so many families who travel during that time. We want to make sure that we have a full week for those breaks so that people can travel to visit out-of-town family. Once you look at the calendar math for spring semester, you'll see that it is very similar to what we have to work with in fall. There's only 3 days left in the calendar to work with, so we don't have a lot of options when we create the calendar. This year, our proposed calendar summary looked very similar across 4 calendars, but there were 2 major differences. The first was the number of days in our pre-planning period, and the second involved when we would host spring break, either the last week in March or the first weekend in April. We brought those calendars forward to share in our surveys for our employees and our families. We rely heavily on the feedback from our employees and from our families in deciding which direction to go with our calendar. We sent out an email to all of our employees and all of our families requesting their input in our calendar surveys. We were overwhelmed with the response, with 451 employees and 844 families giving us important feedback. The first question was regarding when we should host open house. Overwhelmingly, our employees chose a Thursday open house date, while our families chose a 57% a Friday open house date. We took this question to our principals. During our principals meeting, they voiced that there were some real concerns about hosting open house on Friday, including transportation scheduling, new students enrolling at open house, which creates some schedule changes that need to happen, classroom changes, and also they wanted to make sure that teachers had time to be prepared in their classrooms prior to the start date on Monday. When asked about our 4 calendar options, our employee survey broke down this way. 60.5% voted for the calendar that contained 5 days of pre-planning, and 67.2% voted for a calendar with spring break in April. Our parent survey results showed us that 61.9% voted for the calendar that created 5 days of pre-planning, and 61% voted for a calendar with spring break in April. Advocacy for our principals at the principals meeting was highly in favor of a 5-day pre-planning week so that we have more time for professional development, increased dedicated time for classroom preparation, and time to finalize scheduling, new student registration, and transportation planning. Our 4-calendar option survey results showed that the highest number of voters voted for option number 3. Calendar number 3 contained both a 5-day pre-planning period and also a later spring break, being the first week in April. We took this data to our System Steering Committee, who reviewed it thoroughly and after much discussion voted unanimously to recommend that open house be held on Thursday, July 28th, and that calendar version 3 be recommended formally to the Board of Education. At our January Board of Education meeting, the board reviewed the feedback from parents, employees in our surveys, our principals, and also the recommendation for the System Steering Committee. In the end, they chose to vote for calendar option 3. Calendar option 3 will have a 5-day pre-planning period and also will have an April spring break from the 3rd to the 7th. We appreciate the feedback we've received from our community in creating our calendar, and we look forward to serving you and our students in the upcoming school year. Thank you.